The silence in the office is broken only by the soft hum of the ventilation system. Light from the desk lamp falls on the screens built into the wall. There are 9 of them, arranged in a 3 by 3 grid. Ma Baekhyuk is sitting at his desk. He's not working with papers. He's looking at the monitors. The screens show different parts of the house. The kitchen, perfectly clean. The hallway with a dark marble floor. The empty dining room. Long corridors. All the rooms are bathed in cold light. Not a movement, not a shadow, not a speck of dust. He looks at this perfect emptiness every day. It's his world, completely controlled, sterile, predictable. There are no surprises, no mistakes. There is only order. There's supposed to be a surprise today. A new maid. He'd already studied her profile. Iris Terrell. Age, 25. Education, average. Experience, cleaning in small hotels. References, positive, but standard. There was nothing special in the profile, nothing to suggest her character, her willpower, her motives. The paper was silent on the essentials. He doesn't trust dossiers, he trusts his eyes. And his cameras. Today, he would test it himself. He was already prepared for disappointment. Most people were weak, stupid, greedy. They broke at the first pressure. They broke the rules at the first opportunity. He had seen it dozens of times. He leans back in his chair. His white hair stands out brightly in the dim light of the room. He waits. One of the screens shows a view of the main gate. He waits for a red streak to appear, trying to blend into his black and white world. Movement appears on the screen, overlooking the gate. A woman enters the frame from behind the gate. She stops and looks at the house. Ma Baekhyuk leans forward. He zooms in on the image. Red hair. Long, curly, vibrant, even in a black and white picture. It looks like a flash. Like a violation of all rules. He switches the camera. Now she enters the hall. He sees her face. Large eyes, full lips. Light makeup. She is beautiful. This is a fact, not an assessment. Beauty is also a factor, often a hindering one. He watches her walk down the hall. Her dress is simple, but it fits well. It accentuates her figure. She walks carefully, but not shyly. She looks around. Her gaze glides over the walls, over the ceiling. She's looking for something. Or someone. She's not afraid of space, he thinks to himself. That's something. Many people would shrink at the mere sight of this hall. He sees her stop in the center, unsure of where to go. She stands up straight, not slouching, waiting. Ma's face, Baekhyuk, remains completely impassive on the surveillance screen. No smile, no frown, just cold observation. A red streak entered his frame. Now it remained to be seen whether this streak would complement the picture or ruin it. He turns off the monitors. The room plunges into semi-darkness. He gets up and leaves the office. His footsteps are silent on the thick carpet in the hallway. He descends the stairs. He is in no hurry. Let him wait. He appears in the doorway of the hall. He stops and looks. Now he sees her not on a screen, but in person. The colors. Her red hair seems even brighter. Her dress is dark blue. It truly accentuates every line. Her skin is a warm shade, contrasting with the white of his hands and face. She notices him and flinches slightly. Her eyes widen. He sees nervousness in them, a standard reaction. But beneath this nervousness, there's something else. Her gaze doesn't drop immediately. She holds it for a couple of seconds before lowering her eyes slightly. There's no subservience in her posture. There's a restrained tension. He comes closer, slowly. His blue eyes scan her face like a machine. He searches for micro-expressions. A trembling lip, a shifting gaze. Sweat on her temples. He sees nervousness, but he doesn't see panic. He doesn't see stupid fear. He sees concentration. She's trying to control herself, and she's almost succeeding. Something stirs inside him. Not interest in a woman, interest in an object of research, in a complex task. She has hidden strength, his brain registers. This is interesting. Weakness is boring. Strength is a challenge and potential benefit. Iris Terrell, he says. His voice is quiet, even without greeting. Yes, she answers. Her voice is slightly shaky but clear. Come on, he says, turning and walking back toward the stairs. He doesn't look back to see if she will come. He knows she will. He takes her not to the kitchen, not to the utility room. He takes her back to his office. This is her first test, a reaction to an unusual situation. He walks to the table and sits down in a chair. On the table sits a heavy crystal decanter filled with dark amber liquid and a single empty glass. Pour me some, he says. It's not a question. It's a command. She approaches the table. She picks up the decanter. She does it carefully, with both hands, She holds the glass as well. She pours evenly. Not a drop spills. He's not watching her hands. Hands can be trained. He's watching her eyes. Her facial expression. Her lips are pressed slightly together. Her brows are furrowed slightly. She's focused on the task at hand. But when she finishes pouring and looks up at him to hand him the glass, he sees it again. Not fear, challenge. Deeply buried, but there. She looks straight at him as she hands him the glass. Her gaze says, "Look, I did it. What now?" He takes the glass. Their fingers don't touch. "That's enough," he says. He takes a small sip, not for the taste, for the ritual. "You're stubborn," he says unexpectedly, putting the glass down. She remains silent, not knowing what to answer. Agree? Dispute? That can be a good thing, he continues, if stubbornness is channeled in the right direction. Or very bad if it's not. Show me what kind of stubbornness you have. He gives her orders around the house and lets her go. First test passed. Conclusion: stubborn. Observe. The next day he sees her again. In the morning, through the kitchen camera. She's making breakfast. She's wearing a different outfit. Not a simple dark one, but a dress. A different dress. Light, summery, with a floral pattern. It accentuates her figure even more. It's beautiful, bright, noticeable. Ma Bekyuk looks at the screen, his thin lips pressed into a barely noticeable line. He immediately sees it as a challenge, a game. Yesterday he said that stubbornness can be bad, and today she demonstratively puts on an even more beautiful dress. She's testing him, testing his boundaries. Is she trying to manipulate him? To show that her beauty and appearance are her weapon, her right to special treatment? Irritation rises in him like a cold wave. He hates manipulation. He hates it when someone tries to play games, especially stupid and obvious ones. He watches her move around the kitchen in this dress. She doesn't look provocative. She looks natural, as if this is her usual clothing. But it doesn't matter to him. The fact is, she broke an unspoken rule. After yesterday's conversation, she should have worn something as neutral as possible. But she did the opposite. He turns off the monitor. His decision matures quickly. If this is a game, then she's lost before she even started. If this is stupidity, then he doesn't need it. He has no patience for either. He waits until evening, waits for her, in this very dress, to appear in the hall to receive instructions for tomorrow. He comes down. He sees her. Up close, the dress looks even more out of place in his austere home. "With me," he says curtly, without even saying hello. His tone is icy. "To the office." He closes the door to his office. The click of the lock sounds like a death sentence. He doesn't sit. He stands before her, his white hair glowing brightly in the lamplight. His blue eyes are cold as ice in January. "You look very striking today," he says. Every word falls like a stone. "Yesterday, I saw stubbornness in you. Today, I see something different. Do you think your appearance gives you an advantage? That it can change anything in the rules of this house?" Iris opens her mouth to say something, but he raises his hand sharply, stopping her. "Shut up. You're speaking with your outfit now, and it's speaking very loudly. It's speaking of disrespect, of attempted manipulation, of stupidity." He takes a step forward. The space between them disappears. "I don't have time for games, Iris. The house is a system. You are part of the system. Your job is to be functional and unnoticeable. You are not decoration. You are a detail. And this," he gestures with a slight, contemptuous gesture at her dress, "is not a detail. It's a nuisance. Nuisances are eliminated." He looks her straight in the eyes. His gaze leaves no room for doubt. "You have one chance, one, to prove that you understand the word discipline, that you're ready to submit to order without question, without your foolish attempts to stand out." He pauses. The air in the room grows heavy. "Take off that dress quickly if you want to work for me. Right now. Show that your desire to stay here is stronger than your vanity. Or leave. The choice is yours." For him, everything is clear. This is an ultimatum. Break her will. Ruin her stupid game. Either she becomes an obedient cog or she is trash to be thrown away. The words hit Iris like a whip. She feels her cheeks flush with shame and humiliation. But her mind, clouded by shock, clings not to the insults, but to one phrase: attempted manipulation. And then it dawns on her. An icy, clear understanding. He thinks she dressed up on purpose. That she's trying to use her appearance to influence him or the guests. That she has some kind of ambition, some kind of plans. That she wants to be more than a maid. A terrible, monstrous mistake. She didn't wear this dress to manipulate. She wore it out of desperation. After yesterday's conversation, after his cold assessment, she thought, he wants everything around him to be flawless. So, I have to look flawless too. I have to look my best to match his level, to show that I'm serious about working in a house like this. It wasn't a game. It was a naive, stupid, desperate attempt to please, to live up to what she thought were his high standards. And he saw evil intent in this. Tears of self-pity and rage at the injustice well up in her throat. She wants to scream, "I just wanted to look good for work. I thought that's what you wanted." But she looks into his stony face, into his icy eyes, full of contempt for the manipulator, and she understands that her words now will be perceived as an excuse, as a continuation of the game. His ultimatum hangs in the air. Take off your dress or leave. Leaving would mean returning to poverty, to hopelessness. It would mean admitting he was right, that she was weak. To stay. Oh, to obey this monstrous, humiliating order based on his mistake. Her throat tightens, her heart pounds. But somewhere deep down, beneath the layer of shame, a cold, sharp determination is born. The determination to survive, to live through this, to prove him wrong, but not with words, with actions. Her fingers, cold and numb, reach for the zipper on her back. Ma Bekyuk waits. He waits for tears, hysteria, excuses, pleading. He waits for her mask of seductress or schemer to fall, and for him to reveal a weak, frightened girl. She unzips her zipper silently. His eyebrows rise slightly. Stubbornness? Playing to the gallery until the end? The dress slips off her shoulders and falls to the floor in a silent heap of fabric. She stands before him, not trying to cover herself, not cowering. She stands straight, her shoulders back. Her head is slightly raised. A shiver runs across her skin, but it's a shiver from the cold and adrenaline, not from fear. He looks at her, and what he sees in her eyes makes him freeze inside. This is not the pride of a manipulator who has achieved her goal. This is not the challenge of an enraged woman. There's a deep, bottomless humiliation in her eyes, the pain of injustice. But through this pain, something hard breaks through. Steel. Acceptance. Acceptance of this humiliation as a price. The price for a place under this roof. The price for a chance. She doesn't look at him with hatred. She looks at him with a frightening clarity. Her gaze says, "You demanded it. I did it. What next?" A crack appears in his clearly constructed theory. A deep one. A manipulator doesn't see it that way. It's the look of a soldier accepting an order he considers unfair, but necessary to complete the mission. Something's wrong here. His calculations are off. A moment of silence stretches on for an eternity. He watches her standing naked before him, and he doesn't look away. Her posture isn't a challenge, but a readiness to endure. He takes a step forward, slowly, cautiously. His fingers, always cold, touch her bare shoulder. Iris flinches. A small, quick movement. Her skin breaks out in goosebumps, and he sees this trembling. And he understands it incorrectly. His mind, already primed for the Paniki manipulator theory, interprets it this way. She's trembling because she's afraid. Afraid he's uncovered her game. That retribution is about to follow. That her card, her body and beauty, hasn't worked, and now she's defenseless. Fear of exposure, his brain registers. So he was right. She was playing, and now she realizes she's lost. The trembling is the fear of the consequences of her daring, foolish attempt. His irritation subsides slightly. It is replaced by a cold satisfaction. He has figured her out. He has broken her. Now she will obey. Because she is afraid. His hand rests on her shoulder. He feels soft skin, bone, and a tremor beneath his fingers. He doesn't feel desire. He feels power, control, problem solved. "Okay," he says quietly, removing his hand. "So you've chosen to stay. And obey." He doesn't notice that the flash of bitter irony in her eyes when he said, "You chose to stay," wasn't resignation. She chose to stay to prove him wrong. But he thinks she's given up. "Get dressed," he says, pointing to the dress on the floor. "Tomorrow, your uniform will be waiting in your room. No more making your own decisions about clothing. No more games. Do you understand?" Iris nods silently, bending down to pick up her dress. She doesn't look at him. "Go away," he says, turning to the window. She leaves, clutching her beautiful, unnecessary dress. She thinks he holds her guilty of something she didn't do. He thinks he's triumphed over a cunning enemy. They both make mistakes, and this mistake will become the basis for everything that happens between them in the future. Iris's room is small and very clean. Everything in it is white. The walls, the ceiling, the bedding. She lies on her back, staring into the darkness. Her body burns with shame. Every touch of his cold fingers on her shoulder feels like it's seared into her skin. She replays every moment in her head. His words, his gaze, full of contempt. He thinks she was trying to seduce him, that she had plans, that she was a schemer who wanted to use her looks. A bitter smile twisted her lips in the darkness. If only he knew. If only he knew how she dreaded this day, how she wondered which dress would be good enough for his immaculate home. She wanted to please, and he saw it as a threat. Now he thinks she's guilty, broken, obedient out of fear. This thought gnaws at her more than the humiliation itself. Let him think he's broken her will. But she knows the truth. Her will isn't broken. It's hardened. It's become cold and sharp as a blade. She turns onto her side and clutches the pillow. She will stay, not because she's broken, but to prove him wrong, every day, with every action. In his bedroom, Ma Baekhyuk isn't sleeping either. He's lying in his huge bed, staring at the ceiling. He was pleased. The situation had been resolved logically and effectively. She'd tried to play games. He'd shown her who made the rules. The tremor in her shoulder, the submissive look in her eyes as she lifted her dress, everything indicated he was right. He'd figured out her little plan and nipped it in the bud. The dangerous will is broken. Now it can be molded into a useful tool, obedient, predictable. He hates uncertainty. Today, he eliminated it. He closes his eyes. The task is accomplished. He can sleep. He doesn't think about how she stood before him, with pain and acceptance in her eyes. He interpreted it as fear, and that's enough for him. Both lie in darkness, separated by floors and walls. Both are sure they understand each other. Both are sorely mistaken. In the morning, when Iris leaves her room, there's a bag hanging on the doorknob. Inside are clothes. Not just clothes. Uniform. A formal gray jacket and a below-the-knee skirt. A simple white blouse. Nude tights. Low-heeled shoes. Everything is high quality, expensive, but bland. A suit that erases individuality. She takes it in her hands. The fabric is soft, yet cold to the touch. For him, it's a symbol. A flag raised on conquered territory. A sign of his victory and her surrender. For Iris, it's a stigma. A label of guilty. A reminder that he considers her guilty of something she didn't do. That he's deprived her of even the simple right to choose her own clothes. She puts on a suit. She looks at herself in the mirror. Her reflection seems alien. A stern, plain woman. Her red hair is the only bright accent that can't be hidden. She gathers it into a tight, featureless bun. Now she looks like part of his system, just like he wanted. She goes to work. She meets him in the hall. He takes a quick look at her new look, and approval flashes in his eyes. Everything is going according to plan. She nods silently and goes about her duties. Something inside her freezes and hardens. Good. Let him think he's won. Iris quickly notices something odd. She's never alone. When she works in the gardener is always somewhere nearby. He doesn't help, doesn't talk. He just hangs out in plain sight. When she goes to the grocery store down the block, he gives her cash and a list. The driver follows her at a respectful distance. He waits by the entrance, smoking. At home, when she's cleaning the living room or library, she sometimes catches someone's gaze. She turns around and sees one of the few staff standing at the door, seemingly checking something. At first, she thinks it's paranoia. Then she realizes it's a system. He keeps an eye on her. After the incident with the dress, he doesn't trust her. He checks to see if she's breaking any more rules. If she's talking to anyone out of place. If she's taking anything out of place. The thought angers her, humiliates her. She's not a thief or a spy. She's just working. And he's surrounded her with an invisible prison of eyes and observers. She begins to hate these stares. She feels like a lab rat in a glass maze. Her movements become more abrupt when she knows she's being watched. She deliberately arranges things with exaggerated neatness, demonstrating her correctness. Inside, everything is seething. He gives her an assignment to deliver a package of documents to an office building in the city center. A small package. The driver takes her there and says he'll wait outside. Iris moves quickly. She feels uneasy being in the city, among people, after weeks of seclusion in its white fortress. She leaves the building, holding an empty folder. The street is busy. She looks around for a black car. "Hey, redhead, where are you rushing off to, looking so stern?" A rough male voice sounds right next to my ear. A large man in a rumpled tracksuit appears before her. He smells of sweat and something strong. He smirks, looking her up and down, his gaze lingering on the exposed skin at her neck. Iris recoils, her heart sinking. She tries to get around him, but he blocks her path. What, you can't talk? Let's go have some coffee. Unwind. He reaches out to grab her hand. Iris instinctively pushes his hand away. Leave me alone! The man frowns, his smirk giving way to anger. Yeah, right? You think you're better than everyone else? He takes a step forward, and at that moment, another figure appears between him and Iris. Tall, lean, in a dark uniform. It's the driver. It all happens very quickly and quietly. The driver says something quietly to the man, his voice calm, but like a steel cable. He doesn't shout or make threatening gestures. He simply speaks, and stands there. The man in the tracksuit's expression changes. Insolence gives way to bewilderment, then fear. He glances quickly at the driver, then at Iris, mumbles something unintelligible, and practically runs off, disappearing into the crowd. Iris stands leaning against the wall of the building. She's shaking. From fear, from surprise, from the sudden rush of adrenaline. The driver turns to face her, his face unreadable. Everything all right, Miss Terrell? He asks evenly. Yes, she breathes. Thank you. You're welcome. The car is waiting. Let's go. He doesn't show any emotion, as if he just didn't intervene in a potentially dangerous situation, as if it's part of the routine. That evening, when Iris serves him tea in his office, he looks at her. His gaze, as always, is appraising. The driver reported today's incident, he says without preamble. Iris freezes, tray in hand. So the driver didn't just protect her, he also reported her. It was nothing, she says, looking down. Just some rude person. It's not nothing to me, he corrects coldly. Any incident is a failure in the system. Any threat to the staff is a threat to order in the house. He puts down his cup. You're now living and working under my roof. That comes with obligations, including mine. Your safety is part of my order. If anything or anyone threatens that order, it's eliminated. The driver simply fulfilled his duty today. He talks about it as if he's explaining the workings of a complex mechanism, without emotion, without personal interest. Your safety is part of my order, like clean floors or serving food on time. For him, it's completely logical and natural. He's responsible for everything in his home, including her. It's not caring, it's asset management. But for Iris, the words ring differently. After weeks of feeling watched out of mistrust, this explanation shifts perspective. Yes, it's control, but it's control that protected her in a real, physical way. She nods, unsure of what to say. I understand, she says quietly. Okay, you can go, Sayu. She leaves, his words spinning in her head. Part of my order. Strange, creepy, but for the first time since arriving here, she feels not only oppression, but also a strange feeling of being held back. The next day, the same driver takes her to the market to buy fresh greens. Usually quiet in the car, he's talkative today. Yesterday's guy was just a redneck, Miss Terrell, he says, catching her eye in the rearview mirror. Don't pay him any attention. People like that need to be put in their place. He smiles. It's friendly, even playful. Iris smiles politely back, but feels awkward. It's too personal. I'm glad you weren't hurt, he continues. You're all alone here, a young girl in this house. He pauses meaningfully. If anything happens, you can always come to me. I'm nearby. His tone transcends the boundaries of officialdom. It betrays personal interest, sympathy. Iris mumbles something unintelligible in response and looks out the window. She feels uncomfortable. That evening, she sees this driver leaving the house with a bag in his hands. His face is gloomy. He doesn't look around. The next morning, a new car is parked at the gate. A new driver is at the wheel. An elderly man with graying temples and an impassive face. He opens the door for her, nods sternly, and doesn't say a word the entire drive. Iris doesn't ask where the old one went. She has a hunch. Her hunch is confirmed by the gardener, who one day, while she was watering the flowers, muttered under his breath, looking at the new driver. At least this one seems smarter. He won't gossip and look where he shouldn't. Realization dawns on Iris gradually. She sits in her room and thinks it all over. Surveillance, constant observation. She thought it was a check to make sure she didn't steal a spoon or wear the wrong dress again, punishment for her supposed offense. But now she sees a different picture. He's not just watching her, he's watching everyone around her. And he's not just watching, he's taking action. He fired a driver who had allowed himself to be overly familiar and who had crossed the line of official relations. Suddenly, this entire surveillance system appears to her in a new light. Yes, it is control, but it is also a shield. Cruel, impersonal, but effective. He shielded her from danger on the street, and he shielded her from unwanted attention within his own home. He maintains a sterile, safe environment around her, not out of kindness, out of principle. Your safety is part of my order. There's something primal in just about this, the cruel, cold justice of a spider who keeps its web clean. It won't tolerate a threat to its system from the outside, and it won't tolerate dysfunction within, in the form of a servant who overindulges in another part of the system. Iris no longer feels like a simple lab rat. She feels protected by a cage. The cage limits freedom, but it also protects against predators. And within that cage, he maintains his strict rules, which, she begins to realize, work to her advantage. She gets up and goes to the window. Outside, a new driver is washing his car, his movements precise and emotionless. A gardener is trimming the bushes. She thinks of his cold blue eyes, of his ruthless logic. He sees her as a manipulator who needs to be controlled. He doesn't know that his system of control, his order, is becoming the only comprehensible and, paradoxically, safe reality for her in this strange place. She runs her finger across the cold glass. Her reflection in it is stern, in a gray suit. But in her eyes, for the first time in many days, there is no anger. There is a cold, clear assessment, almost respect for the effectiveness of his system, and a strange, unsettling feeling that if he considers her part of this order, he will protect it as ruthlessly as he eliminates threats. This is not love. This is not care. This is something else, more solid and reliable than human feelings. It is a principle, and against all expectations, she begins to like this cruel clarity. Iris is cleaning his office. Dust barely accumulates here, but she still wipes the surfaces with perfectly smooth, practiced strokes. Her gray suit doesn't rustle. Her shoes don't click on the floor. She's become part of the silence of this house. She knows there's a tiny black dot in the upper corner of the room, barely visible against the white wall. A camera lens. Her back used to ache from the strain of its invisible gaze. Now she barely notices it. Today, when she finishes, she pauses. She looks at that same black dot, just looks. Then, almost imperceptibly, she nods. One short nod. Not a smile, not a gesture, just a quiet, conscious acknowledgement. Thank you, for safety, for following the rules clearly, for taking out that driver. She doesn't wait for an answer. There can't be one. She picks up her rag and empty flower vase and leaves. In the evening, he calls her into his office. Not to run errands. He's sitting at the table, with 2 teapots and 2 cups in front of him. He usually drinks alone. He gestures to the chair opposite, silently. Iris sits up, confused. He pours tea from one teapot into his cup, and from another into the cup in front of her. He sets the cup down on the table, right in front of her. A thin stream of aroma rises. This isn't his usual strong black tea. It's her favorite, with a subtle scent of jasmine. She's never told him about it, but someone might have noticed the kind of tea she picks up in the kitchen when she thinks no one is looking. He doesn't look at her. He picks up his cup and turns to the window, pretending to watch the sunset. Not a word was said, but the message was clear as day. He saw. He understood. He responded. In his own way. Precise, emotionless, but not devoid of meaning. Iris takes the cup. The tea is the perfect temperature. She takes a small sip and looks at his back. A whole conversation takes place between them in the quiet of the office, without a single sound. From that day on, Iris stops ignoring the cameras. She stops being afraid of them. She starts using them. She notices that the flowers in the vase in the hallway are starting to wilt. The next day, as she passes by, she deliberately stops in front of the vase. She turns so that the camera in the corner of the hallway can see her face. She looks at the wilted flower, frowns slightly, carefully straightens its petals, shakes her head with mild regret, and moves on. The next morning, freshly cut flowers stand in the vase, perfect, without a single flaw. In the library, she carefully sets down a volume that had been slightly out of place. She places it evenly, running her finger along the spine, as if marking a spot. The next day, she finds a small, new bookend in the same spot, one that hadn't been there before. She doesn't do anything loud, nothing pleading, just small, clear signals, readings from a device that registers deviations from the ideal. She becomes part of his feedback system. She doesn't ask, she communicates, and the system responds. One day, she notices that the lock on the service entrance has become stiffer. She deliberately applies a little more force when opening it during the day, knowing the camera above the door will see it. By evening, the lock works flawlessly, like new. It's a strange, silent game, a game in which she learns to speak his language, a language of actions, observations, and silent corrections. One day, he stops her in the hallway as she's carrying laundry. "With me," he says curtly. He leads her not to the office, but to that very door next to the office. The door that is always locked. He takes out the key, inserts it into the lock, and opens the door. He enters first. Iris pauses on the threshold. The room is small and windowless. Monitors cover every wall from floor to ceiling. Dozens of them. Views from every camera in the house. Cameras by the gate. Cameras on the street adjacent to the house. There are even cameras, it seems, in some rooms of the neighboring buildings. In the center is a comfortable chair and a control panel. This isn't just a room. It's a command center, the brain of his white fortress. "Come in," he says. His voice sounds different in this room, more commanding, more in control. She steps inside. The air is cool, smelling of ozone and plastic. She looks at the screens. She sees herself from yesterday, straightening the flowers. She sees the kitchen, the garden, her empty hallway. She sees the new driver washing the car with a stony face. "Now you see," he says, walking around her and sitting down in a chair. He doesn't look at her. He looks at the screens. This isn't surveillance on a whim. This is maintaining order, the full picture. Nothing happens without my knowledge. Threats are spotted early. Means, i.e., problems are solved before they become problems. He turns in his chair and looks at her. His blue eyes seem even colder in the light of the monitors. "And your safety," he says clearly, "is part of this picture. You are here." He points to one of the screens, which shows the now empty hallway. "That means you are under my control and my responsibility. I do not tolerate system failures. Not from the outside, not from the inside." He stands and approaches her. He stands close but does not touch her. "You've shown that you understand the rules, that you know how to use the system. Now you see the system from the inside. This is not a gift. This is a test. Will you understand its scope? Will you be afraid? Or will you accept it?" He steps back, letting her look at the flickering screens again. Iris watches. She sees more than just cameras. She sees his world, the world he built to control everything, to keep him safe. And now he's let her in. The holy of holies of this world, not as a guest, as a candidate. A candidate for what? She doesn't know yet, but her heart beats steadily, not with fear. Inside, there is a quiet, cold excitement. As before a difficult but interesting task, several days pass. She's doing her usual work, but now she feels the house differently. She knows she's being watched, and this knowledge no longer oppresses her. It gives her strength. She's part of this mechanism. She understands its logic. He begins to delegate more complex tasks to her, not just cleaning, delivering documents, overseeing deliveries, remembering and delivering short messages over the phone. She does everything flawlessly, without unnecessary questions, with cold precision. One evening, after she's successfully resolved a minor issue with a supplier, he offers her a whiskey. He doesn't order her. He offers. They sit in the office. The silence is no longer hostile, but rich, almost comfortable. She looks at her glass, then at him. The alcohol and the strange atmosphere of the evening loosen her tongue. Everything that has been pent up all these weeks is asking to come out. "You then," she begins quietly, without looking up. "You were very wrong then." He puts down his glass. "In what?" "About the dress. That same one." He freezes. His face becomes an impenetrable mask, but his eyes sparkle with keen interest. "I didn't wear it because I wanted to prove anything to you or manipulate you," she says, the words coming out quickly, as if she's afraid her courage will fail her. "I wore it because you said there would be guests tonight. I thought you wanted to impress, that everything in the house should be perfect, and I, as part of the how, I should look perfect. I wanted to do your bidding well, to please. That's all." She looks up at him. There's no reproach in them, only tired truth, the truth she's carried within herself all this time. "I just wanted to do my job well," she finishes, almost in a whisper. Mabaekyuk sits motionless. He looks at her, but doesn't see her. He sees a reconstruction of events, her confusion on the first day, her diligence in pouring whiskey, her wearing the perfect dress the next day not as a challenge, but as a foolish, desperate desire to please. Her standing before him, without a dress, is not the breakdown of a proud manipulator, but the sacrifice of a naive girl, willing to do anything for a job she so misunderstood. All the pieces of the puzzle fell into place with deafening, icy clarity. He read her like a complex code, full of hidden meanings and intrigues, and she was an open book with one simple, foolish thought. The owner must like it. He, a master of calculation and foresight, made a fundamental error. He attributed to her motives that did not exist. He saw gameplay where there was simple, even primitive diligence. He punished her for a crime she did not commit. Something incredible is happening on his usually impassive, stone-like face. The muscles around his mouth twitch slightly. His eyebrows draw together slightly. His eyes, usually so cold and confident, become confused. He looks as if his most reliable computer has produced an absurd result, which, nevertheless, turns out to be correct. He looks away. He glanced at the dark window, where they are both reflected. He in his designer suit, she in her strict gray guise. He begins, then trails off. Words, usually so precise, refuse to serve him. He doesn't apologize. He seems incapable of doing so, but his silence, his broken mask of composure, speaks louder than any words. He made a mistake, and he realized it. For the next few days, a strange, dense awkwardness hangs in the house. The usual silence is now filled with the unspoken. He avoids looking at her directly. When giving instructions, his voice is even, but without the usual commanding tone. He no longer checks her every move with his gaze. Iris senses this change. She doesn't rejoice. She even feels a little sorry. His previous confidence, even if it was based on error, was part of the order. Now that order is shaken. He, who seemed omnipotent and omniscient, has found himself vulnerable. He was unfair, and he knows it. She, in turn, behaves with extreme caution. She doesn't remind him of his mistake. She doesn't try to take advantage. She simply works even more quietly, even more precisely. It's as if she's trying not to exacerbate his discomfort. They bump into each other in the hallway. He's walking toward her, his head buried in his tablet. He looks up, sees her, and his stride falters for a moment. He nods silently and walks past, a little faster than usual. She stands, watching him go. Before, his injustice angered her. Now, his awkwardness evokes something different in her, almost understanding. He built the world according to his own plans, and suddenly discovered he'd miscalculated one small but crucial detail. And now he doesn't know how to recalculate it. The image of the cunning schemer and the all-seeing boss between them no longer exists. What remains are two people who misunderstood each other from the very beginning, and now they must somehow coexist. Knowing this truth, the awkwardness lasts for almost a week. Then he finds his way. He calls her into his office. On the desk lies not a cleaning to-do list, but a thin folder of documents and a phone she's never seen before. "Sit down," he says. His tone is businesslike, but without the previous cold detachment. She sits down. "I have a task," he says, pushing the folder towards her. "I need to check information on a certain company. Legal subtleties, numbers. It's all here. Your task is to study it, find inconsistencies, weak points, write a short report. No emotion, just the facts." He looks at her. For the first time in a long time, he looks directly at her, assessing not her loyalty, but her intelligence. "This isn't a maid's job. This is an analyst's job. You have 3 days to do this. All necessary database access will be available from this computer." He gestures to the laptop in the corner of the desk. "Any questions?" Iris looks at the folder, then at him. This isn't an assignment to mop the floor or buy groceries. This is complex, intellectual work. This is a test of a completely different kind. And this, an apology. Silent but eloquent. He's not saying sorry. He's saying, "I was wrong to think your mother-in-law was stupid. Prove you can do more." She takes the folder. The pages rustle in her hands. "No questions," she says clearly. 3 days. He nods, and something akin to approval flickers in his eyes. Not for submission, for a willingness to accept the challenge. Iris immerses herself in her work. She forgets about cleaning, about the clock. She sits in her room or the small office space he's assigned to her, surrounded by printouts and with tabs open on her laptop. She learns quickly, her mind, long occupied with routine, Eagerly grasping at a complex problem, she finds inconsistencies in contracts, suspicious transactions, hidden connections. She works all 3 days and part of the night. She compiles a report, not just a list of facts, a structured, logical analysis with conclusions and recommendations. She writes it in simple, clear language, without fluff. In his language. Exactly 3 days later, she walks into his office. She places the report folder and a printed one-page summary in front of him. Done, she says. He takes the sheet of paper and reads. His eyes run along the lines. He reads slowly, absorbing it. He flips through the full report, scanning the key points she's highlighted. His face is expressionless, but from the way he nods slightly at times, Iris understands. He sees. He sees quality. He sees the mind at work. He puts the papers down and looks at her. Good, he says. One word. But coming from him, it's the highest praise. Very good. You did well. Iris stands up straight. She feels tired, but also incredibly empowered. I didn't do it out of fear, she says calmly. Looking into his eyes, she sees his gaze deepen. And not out of a desire to please. I did it because you trusted me with a job. A real job. And I value that trust. And I'm responsible for it. She pauses, letting the words sink in. You were wrong about the dress then, but you weren't wrong now. By trusting me with this, I proved it. She doesn't smile. She simply states a fact. Her fact, the fact of her competence, which he finally sees. He looks at her for a long time, at her tired face, yet radiant with inner confidence, at her direct gaze. He no longer sees her as a maid, or a victim, or a schemer. He sees a resource, valuable, effective, and perhaps something more. Trust, he repeats quietly, as if testing the word. Good. So we're starting with a clean slate, with the right calculations. He leans back in his chair. His expression becomes focused again, but now there's a new dimension to his gaze. Respect, and the beginnings of real interest. Sit down, Iris. Let's talk about your new responsibilities. He points her to the chair opposite his desk. Before, she stood when he spoke to her. Now she sits. Your analytical skills are above average, he begins without preamble. Routine cleaning is an inefficient use of resources. You'll continue to maintain order in the house, but your primary tasks are changing. He lays out several folders in front of her. These are current operations, logistics, counterparty verification, financial flow monitoring using open sources. Nothing illegal, just risk analysis and assessment. You will be my eyes and filter for information. He speaks clearly, to the point. There's no condescension or previous suspicion in his voice. It's a matter-of-fact statement. He's appreciated her as a tool and found a more appropriate use for it. Iris listens and nods. There's no jubilation inside. There's a cold, clear satisfaction. She's broken through. Not through acting, not through trying to please, but through work, through results. I'll do everything, she says simply. I know, he replies. And in those two words lies the entire new foundation of their relationship. The old roles, the suspicious boss and the potential schemer, have cracked and crumbled. Something is being built in their place. Something shaky, new, but strong as steel. Mutual respect based on competence. He no longer sees her as a threat to his system. He sees her as part of it. She no longer sees him as an unjust tyrant. She sees him as the master of a complex machine, who has finally put her in her proper place within the mechanism. He gives her passwords, access rights, and explains the basic principles. She asks short, precise questions. He gives short, precise answers. No unnecessary information. No personal topics. Clean work. As she leaves with the folders, he watches her go. His gaze is thoughtful. He wasn't mistaken about her intelligence. Perhaps he was mistaken about everything else about her from the very beginning. Weeks pass in intense work. Iris rarely ventures out of her living quarters. She divides her time between her room, a small office that is now rightfully considered her workspace, and the observation room. She learns to read the information on the screens, not as images, but as data. She begins to see patterns, recognizing routine security patrols and unusual activity. One night, she's awakened by a quiet but insistent sound, a special signal on the tablet he gave her. An alarm from the observation room. She throws on a robe and runs down the dark corridor. The door to the command center is open. Inside, only the dim light of the monitors is on. Ma Bekyuk is already there. He stands in front of a wall of screens, his figure tense. He's wearing only dark pants and a white unbuttoned shirt. He hasn't slept. Look, he says quietly, without turning around when she enters. On two screens, showing the distant approaches to the territory from the rear fence, shadows dart about. Fuzzy, fast. 3, maybe 4 people. They are trying to quickly and silently scale the fence with some kind of tools. They're professionals, he says through clenched teeth, but not the best. The cameras see them. Iris steps closer. She stands next to him, her shoulder almost touching his arm. She feels no fear, only a sharp, cold curiosity and adrenaline. She looks at the screens, her mind rapidly analyzing. They're not going to the main building, she notes. To the maintenance block, where the garage and storage are. Right, he nods, and approval is heard in his voice. They need access or samples. Not an attack, not yet. He takes the microphone from the console. Alpha Team. His voice on the microphone is quiet but commanding. 3 targets in Sector 7-9. Containment and detention tactics. Silence. I'm on the air. He puts down the microphone and quickly switches cameras, tracking the movements of his people, who are out of sight but who he knows are already on the move. Iris stands next to him. She feels the warmth of his body, hears his even breathing. She watches the same screens as he does. They see the same threat. Their world, their white fortress, is under attack, and they stand here, shoulder to shoulder, to repel it. On the screens, the shadows near the fence freeze. One of the intruders gestures to the other. They've realized something. Perhaps they sensed a trap. They're retreating, Iris says quietly. We won't let them, he replies, just as quietly. He picks up the microphone. Alpha, surround, Sector 8. They'll try to escape through the drainage ditch. Iris looks at the map of the area hanging on the adjacent screen. A drainage ditch. It leads to an old gate, always locked but seemingly vulnerable. The gate is in the area she'd studied on the plans. He gives orders to the guards, his voice completely calm. Iris silently moves to another control panel. She knows she has no right to touch the security systems, but she knows the internal electronic locking system, the very one she once silently reported a malfunction. He's focused on the intruders and his men. He doesn't notice how her fingers quickly and confidently scroll through the menu on one of the auxiliary screens. She finds a diagram of the internal partitions in the utility block. If they try to break in through the gate, they'll find themselves in a narrow corridor. Without asking permission, she remotely locks 2 armored doors in this corridor, trapping it. 2 red lights flash on the status screen. Locked. He glances at her screen, seeing movement in the corner of his eye. He sees the red indicators. He sees what she's done. He doesn't say, "What are you doing?" He just nods briefly, his gaze meeting hers for a split second. Approval. Coordination. Alpha, he says into the microphone. Targets are heading into a trap. A corridor between sectors 8 and 9. Doors are locked. Take them there. The screens show the shadows retreating, indeed diving toward the old gate and disappearing into the utility building. A minute later, short, muffled sounds of a struggle are heard, picked up by sensitive microphones. Then, silence. Voice in Ma's headphones, Bekyuk reports. 3 targets detained, no casualties on our side. 1 sustained a minor concussion during the detention. He exhales, not with fear but with satisfaction. The task is accomplished. The threat is neutralized. He looks at Iris. She's standing at the console, her hands at her sides, her face pale in the light of the monitors, but her eyes are shining. You blocked their path, he states. You directed them there, she counters. I just closed the door. For the first time since they'd known each other, something vaguely resembling a smile twitched at the corner of his mouth. Very brief, almost imperceptible. Well coordinated, he said. And that was the highest praise. The alarm is cancelled. Security guards are interrogating the detainees in an isolated room on the premises. The house is once again plunged into silence, but it's no longer the same quiet emptiness. It's the silence after a storm, saturated with the echoes of what just happened. They leave the observation room and walk down the dark corridor to his office, without speaking. The office is dark. He doesn't turn on the light. He goes to the bar and pours 2 cognacs into short glasses. He hands one to her. They stand by the huge window, looking out at the city at night, illuminated in the distance. The adrenaline is still pumping through their veins, making their hearts beat a little faster. He takes a sip, looks ahead. You weren't scared today, he says. It's not a question, it's an observation, a statement of an important fact. Iris holds the glass with both hands, feeling the warmth of the drink spread through her fingers. No, she answers honestly. I wasn't scared. He turns his head, looking at her profile in the dark. Why? Most people would panic. Run for cover. She shrugs, also looking out the window. There was nowhere to run. And there was no point. I knew the cameras saw everything, that their every move was tracked, and that you were in control. You saw them before they became a real threat. You directed them like clockwork. In that situation, it was scarier to be in the dark than to be in the control center. And I was in the control center. He listens silently. Her words flow smoothly, without pathos. A simple statement of her logic that fits perfectly with his own worldview. He slowly turns his entire body towards her. He places his glass on the windowsill. His face in the dim light seems sharp, but not cold. You trust the system, he says. I trust its effectiveness, she corrects, and the one who runs it, because I've seen him do it. She puts down her glass too. They stand face to face in the darkness, separated by mere centimeters. The air between them is thick with the unspoken. He looks at her. He sees not a maid, not an analyst, but a person who has lived through his injustice, understood the rules of his game, mastered them, and now stands on the same playing field with him, an equal in a moment of crisis. He slowly raises his hand. His fingers, always so cold and precise, touch hers. He doesn't grab it. He doesn't squeeze. He simply places his palm over hers, resting on the cold glass of the windowsill. His touch isn't overbearing, not possessive. It's affirming, like a handshake after a difficult, successfully completed operation, a gesture of allyship, a gesture of recognition. You're here. You're with me. You've done it. Iris doesn't pull her hand away. She feels the weight of his palm, the dryness of his skin, the slight coolness. She looks at their hands, then looks up at him. In the darkness, his blue eyes seem almost black, but some inner light burns in them. Not triumph, recognition. She turns her hand slightly under his so their fingers just brush. Not squeezing, just touching. A response. I'm here. I'm with you. I understand. He holds her hand for a few more seconds, then slowly removes his. Contact is broken, but a connection has been established, on a level deeper than words, on the level of mutual understanding and unconditional trust, earned in the fire of real danger. The next morning, he calls her into his office again. On the desk, not the work folder, but a thicker one made of dark leather, lies another. Sit down, he says. His tone is serious, even stern. She sits up, feeling that something important is about to happen. He opens the folder. Inside are not financial reports, but dossiers, photographs, transcripts of conversations, network diagrams, faces of people, some of whom she's glimpsed on the news. Yesterday's visit wasn't random, he says. It's part of a larger conflict, a conflict over resources, over influence. I'm an obstacle for some people. You're working alongside me now, so that means you've become a target too. A secondary one, perhaps, but a target nonetheless. He looks at her, gauging her reaction. She doesn't blink, waiting for him to continue. You've earned the right to know what we're working against. Not everything, but the basics, to understand the context, to see threats not as abstractions, but as specific people with motives. He begins to explain, briefly, clearly, without emotion. He names the rival groups, their interests, and the history of their confrontation. He points out pressure points and vulnerabilities. He doesn't portray himself as a hero. He describes a business war where the methods are brutal and the rules are made up as they go. Iris listens, absorbing the information. She understands the scale. She understands why his home is a fortress, why the paranoia, why the surveillance and security system. This isn't a rich man's whim, it's a necessity. He closes the folder. This information doesn't leave this room. Now you're the only person in this house, besides me, who knows the whole picture. The guards know their tasks. The drivers know theirs. You know why. He trusts her with more than just a job. He trusts her with the truth, the most dangerous part of his life. In exchange for her competence and composure last night. I understand, Iris says. Her voice is firm. And I'm ready. I'm already in it. It's too late to back out, and I don't want to. He nods. He expected it. Okay, then let's keep working. Now your job is not just analysis, but also strategic assistance. You see things from a different perspective. That's valuable. The roles are completely reversed. Now, when he goes away on business, and such departures are always carefully planned and guarded, he leaves her to do more than just keep an eye on the house. He leaves her on duty in the surveillance room. "You're in charge of monitoring," he says before leaving. "Any suspicious activity alerts me immediately. You know what to look for." He leaves. Iris takes his chair in the command center. She feels a strange weight of responsibility and, at the same time, a keen sense of entitlement. She's not here because he trusts her as a woman. He trusts her as a professional. As part of his security system, she doesn't just look at screens. She analyzes. She knows the patrol schedule, the makes of her neighbors' cars, the usual delivery schedule. So when, late at night, she sees a dark SUV slowly drive past the gate 3 times and stop in the blind spot between the street cameras, her internal alarm goes off. She zooms in on the images from the nearby cameras. There's no license plate. The windows are fully tinted. The engine is running. She doesn't panic. She picks up the special phone and dials his encrypted number. "It's me," she says when he picks up. Her voice is even. At the gate, on the Oak Alley side, there's a dark SUV with no license plates. Third slow pass in 20 minutes. It's currently parked in the blind spot between cameras 3 and 4. Looks like a reconnaissance mission. There was a brief pause on the other end. Then his voice, calm and businesslike. "Coordinates received. I'll raise the alarm at the perimeter. You keep watching. If it moves toward the main entrance, alert immediately." "Good for you for noticing." He doesn't say thank you. He says, "Well done." It's more than gratitude. It's an appreciation of her work. 10 minutes later, 2 of his security cars appear on the screens, slowly driving out of the area and blocking the approaches to where the SUV was parked. By that point, it had already disappeared. When he returns the next day, he goes straight to the command center. She reports the incident and shows him the recordings. "That's right, intelligence." He nods, reviewing the recording. "They were testing the reaction in my absence. You delivered, quickly and correctly." He looks at her. There's no surprise in his gaze. There's satisfaction. He's relied on her insight. And he's not wrong. His system, his fortress, works even when he's not there, because it now has another reliable element. She. One morning, on her desk, there's not a folder, but a large, flat box made of thick, ivory-colored paper. No note, just the box, tied with a dark gray ribbon. Iris looks at her, carefully unties the ribbon, lifts the lid. Inside, under a layer of thin tissue paper, lies a dress. It's not the elaborate evening gown that started the whole nightmare, nor is it the formal office suit he confined her to. This dress is soft, dark blue silk, cut simply and elegantly. It's beautiful, expensive, but understated. It speaks of taste, not a desire to impress. She picks it up. The fabric flows between her fingers, cool and alive. She doesn't understand. She doesn't understand until she meets him in the hall that evening. He's dressed not in a work suit, but in dark trousers and a simple but impeccably fitted shirt. "Did you get the package?" he asks without preamble. "Yes," she says, still confused. "Okay," he nods. "We're not having guests tonight, just dinner. Wear that dress." He sees the question in her eyes, the question she's afraid to ask. Why? What test now? He answers it before she can say a word. This time, choose for yourself, not for guests, not for work, not for me, just because you like it, and because you can. He says it evenly, as always, but there's no command in these words. There's permission. More than that, encouragement. He's giving her back the choice he once so cruelly took away. But now it's not a choice between shame and hunger. It's the choice of a woman who has earned the right to wear what suits her, who no longer has to hide. He turns and walks away, leaving her standing with the dress in her hands and a kaleidoscope of feelings inside. It's not a gift. It's a symbol of what he sees in her now. Not an object, not a servant, not a suspect, a person, sort of. Iris stands for a long time in front of the mirror in her room. The dress fits her perfectly. It accentuates the curves of her body, but does so with respect, not provocation. The color makes her red hair shine even brighter, and her eyes appear deeper. She doesn't do her hair in an elaborate style. She wears it down. Her makeup is light. She looks at her reflection and doesn't see Iris the maid. She sees the woman she's become over the past few months. More reserved, stronger, with a sharper gaze. She goes down to the dining room. The table is set for 2. Dim lighting, candles, a simple but elegant dinner. Nothing pompous. The atmosphere is almost intimate, but without a hint of vulgarity. He's already waiting. Seeing her, he freezes for a second. His gaze slides over her, but it's not the cold, appraising gaze of the past. This is a gaze, acknowledging, seeing beauty, and giving it its due. He gives a brief nod. Approval, not of a boss, of a man. He pulls out a chair for her, a small gesture he's never done before. They sit down. Dinner begins. At first, it's silent, but it's not the heavy, hostile silence of their first meetings. This is the silence of two people who don't need to fill the void with words. They eat and drink wine. They talk about neutral matters, the current state of affairs, the new data analysis algorithm she proposed. But gradually, the conversation changes. He asks her opinion not only about her work, but also about small details, about the art hanging on the walls. It turns out he collects contemporary Korean artists, about the books in the library. She carefully shares her thoughts. He listens. He doesn't interrupt. Occasionally, he asks a clarifying question. She sees him differently, not as a mafia boss in a designer suit, but as a smart, reserved man, incredibly tired of constant control. He lets the tyrant mask slip slightly. He shows her the man behind the system, and she lets him see herself. Not a frightened girl, not a wicked schemer, but a smart, determined woman who endured his cruelty and emerged stronger. She tells him how she saw his surveillance system first as a prison and then as a shield. He listens, and something akin to respect, mingled with amazement, flashes in his eyes. They are no longer boss and maid. They are two people who have seen each other at their most vulnerable, at their most unsightly. He has seen her humiliated to the core. She has seen him erring, awkward, even confused. And now they sit at the same table, knowing all of this about each other. The masks have fallen. All that remains is a strange, unbreakable bond, forged in mistakes, danger, and mutual respect. They move into the office, not for work, simply because this is his space. And now, in a sense, it has become hers too. He pours them each a glass of cognac. They stand by the same huge window as the night after the break-in. The city below shimmers like a diamond-studded blanket. Silence envelops them again. But now it's warm, alive. He stares into the darkness beyond the glass, his profile sharp and hard in the dim light. "I was wrong about you from day one," he says quietly. The words come out hard. Admitting a mistake is like admitting weakness to him. But he says it. "I saw beauty and immediately decided it was manipulation. I saw stubbornness and immediately decided it was a threat. I built a whole theory about you in my head without even trying to verify the facts. I punished you for a crime that never happened." He turns to face her. His eyes seem very light in the darkness, almost transparent. "It was a serious tactical error. And human. I'm rarely wrong about people. With you, I was wrong about everything." Iris holds the glass, feeling something inside her tighten at his words. Not pain, not triumph, purification. "I was wrong too," she says, just as quietly. "I thought you only saw the worst in people, that you were just a cold machine for control and power. I didn't see logic, fairness in your rules. I didn't see that your cruelty is sometimes simply efficiency, and that there could be something else behind it. Responsibility, even care, strange, your own." She takes a step closer. Now there are centimeters between them. We both looked at each other through the distorting mirror of our fears and prejudices. He looks at her face, illuminated by the shimmering city, at her eyes, which look at him without fear, without flattery, with the same clear directness with which she analyzed his reports. He sets down his glass slowly. His movements are precise, but lack the usual swiftness. It's as if he's weighing every millimeter. "And now?" he asks. His voice is low, slightly hoarse. "What do you see now?" "I see an ally," she answers without hesitation. "A man I can rely on, who, even when he makes mistakes, operates according to his own system, and who is capable of changing that system if he sees a flaw in it." He looks at her, and something final happens in his eyes. Some final inner wall crumbles. He leans in, slowly, giving her time to back away, to turn away, to say no. She doesn't back down. She doesn't turn away. His lips touch hers. It's not a passionate, possessive kiss. It's not a takeover. It's a test, a question, a choice he offers them both, a choice to be together, not as master and property, not as boss and subordinate, but as two lonely islands that have found each other in a turbulent ocean, like two parts of the same machine that have finally come together. The kiss doesn't last long. He pulls away, looking into her eyes, seeking an answer, confirmation. Iris doesn't answer with words. She places her hand on his cheek. Her fingers touch his skin, so unexpectedly warm. Her gaze says it all. Yes, I choose this. I choose you. With all your mistakes, your cruelty, your logic, because you saw mine too, and you accepted it. This is a union, not romantic, not fairy tale. Real, strong, forged from the steel of mutual trust, respect, and understanding of each other's complexity. A true union. Later that night, they don't go back to their rooms. They go to the observation room, the place where their true bond began. He sits down in his chair, but not to work. She stands next to him, leaning against the back of the chair. Dozens of screens display a peaceful night scene. A quiet house, empty, illuminated streets. A patrol car creeps past occasionally. Everything is under control. His hand reaches back, finds hers. He tugs gently but firmly. She walks around the chair and sits on the wide armrest. He wraps his arms around her shoulders, pulling her closer. Her back rests against his chest, her head resting next to his cheek. Her hand rests on top of his, which is resting on her shoulder. They sit like that, silently, staring at the monitors. At their own, now shared fortress. He is no longer a lone guard in this glass and concrete tower. She is no longer an outsider, no longer an object of observation. He is the brain of the system. She is his eyes, his analysis, his rear. They are one team, one system, indivisible. On the screens, everything is calm, no threats. Only the quiet, confident work of the mechanisms they built, and which now protect them both. He tilts his head, his lips brushing against her temple. Not a kiss, more like a period, an acknowledgement of presence. Iris closes her eyes, feeling the weight of his arm, the warmth of his body behind her, the flickering of the screens before her eyes. She feels like she belongs, not like she ever imagined, but like it should be. They are no longer observer and object. They are the center, the heart of the fortress, beating in unison. Two silhouettes, merged into one in the dim light of the room, from where they see their entire world and control it. Together, he silently points to the central screen, where all the motion sensors around the perimeter are schematically displayed. All green, not a single malfunction. Her hand rests on top of his, her fingers squeezing slightly. He responds in kind. It's their language. It's how they say, "It's okay. I'm here. We need to check the reports on the eastern sector tomorrow," he says quietly, his voice vibrating in her hair. "There's a new construction company there. We need a thorough analysis. I'll start at 7, she answers just as quietly. No unnecessary words. Work is their shared lifeblood, coursing through the veins of the fortress. He nods, his chin lightly touching her head. He doesn't say, "Thank you." He doesn't say, "I'm glad you're here." All of that has already been said in the silence, in the touch, in the shared screens they watch. He switches one of the monitors to a camera view of her former maid's room. The room is empty. The lights are off. "There'll be an extra office for you now," he says. "For paperwork. You deserve your own space." She doesn't answer. She just nods, feeling like a warm and calm feeling spreads within. This isn't a gift. It's a logical improvement to the system. Its efficiency has increased. It requires better conditions. But this means more to it. It means it's here to stay, forever. On another screen, she sees their new silent driver carefully cleaning the car's headlights. Everything runs like clockwork. Every person in their place. Every cog. She's not a cog. She's part of the controls. Part of him. "Time to rest," he says finally, but doesn't move. "Tomorrow will be a long day." "Yes," she agrees, but she also doesn't move. Another minute. 2. They sit, looking at their domain, their well-ordered world. 2 islands that have become one continent. 2 lonely souls who have found in each other not passion, but understanding. Not love in the usual sense, but something more lasting, absolute trust and a shared purpose. Finally, he rises carefully, not letting go of her. She stands beside him. They walk out of the observation room, leaving the screens flickering in the void. The house swallows them up, quiet and safe. Their fortress, their shared creation, their life. They walk down the dark corridor, shoulder to shoulder. Their steps sound in unison. He doesn't lead her to her room. He leads her to his apartment. The door closes. There are no cameras here, just them. He turns to face her. In the light of a single night lamp, his face looks tired but calm. "You're safe here," he says simply. "More than anywhere else." Iris nods. She knows it's true. This is the most secure room in the house. He doesn't make any sudden movements. He takes off his jacket and hangs it over the back of a chair. Then he turns to her and slowly, giving her time to react, unbuttons her jacket. She doesn't resist. She helps him take off her jacket. This isn't undressing, it's a ritual, the removal of the daytime armor. Only they remain, two people who know each other's worst and most real secrets. He takes her hand and leads her to the bed. They lie down, not in passion, but in exhaustion. He hugs her, pressing her back to his chest. His hand is on her waist. Her hand is on top of his. Silence. Darkness. Only their breathing. "Good night, Iris," he whispers into her hair. It's the first time he's called her by name, without distance. "Good night, Beck," she whispers back, calling him by his first name for the first time. They fall asleep, not as lovers, as allies, as two halves of a whole, finally finding their place. Their fortress has closed its walls around them, and now they are inside it, together.